And away we go. It's the DFS of the Bird presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. Talk to you more about that momentarily. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockren along with you on this Friday morning. 15-game Major League Baseball slate. A little bit of NFL here at the top, a 7-3 game as we're recording during halftime. Game will be getting underway again between the Bears and the Green Bay Packers, but we'll dive into baseball. Obviously, Awesemo has you covered off on NFL, and that's when I want to take that moment here. Tons of content in front of the paywall, tons of content behind, lots of projections, lots of ownership projections, Fantasy Cruncher, and there is obviously Lineup Builder and so much more. So if you're into the NFL, which it would seem a large majority of you are, check out our offerings there. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD for 50% off your first month to Awesemo Premium Plus package that is available now. Lofty, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Better than the Bears faithful at Soldier Field right now, man. Those boos came raining down. I thought they were at the link.
I'm gonna put something out there, and it may be controversial. Maybe Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback. I don't want to get too out there here this early on the podcast, but
he doesn't look. This game for a lot of people is not a feel-good game. The David Montgomery hype, right? Now, granted, Green Bay's defense looks pretty good, but and Chicago's defense is outrageously good. But you drafted Aaron Jones in the third round. You're not happy. You got Anthony Miller's a guy I still have some confidence in him. He's been a ghost all day. Mike Davis is mixed in pretty heavy. David Montgomery getting a little bit of work, but certainly not. And look, by the way, this is one game, and we're not even through the third quarter yet. But I'm just telling you what other people are thinking right now, and it crosses my mind too. Then you got to temper yourself. You got to say, okay, it's one game, which it is. It's not even a full game yet, but there are a lot of panicking fantasy enthusiasts out there. I can assure you of that right now. Most of it unwarranted, but it's happening for sure.
Here's the thing about fantasy football. It's full of small samples. It's 16 games. So you're going to have to make reactions and overreactions and make choices pretty quickly. Maybe not a half of football, but a full game. Maybe you're going to be making waiver wire claims sometime Sunday night into Monday. Probably runs Tuesday or Wednesday for most of you. You're going to have to make choices. You're going to have to make those quick ones. And I think the NFL game and fantasy football at large is rife for that, of having to make quick, bold decisions to get the Mike Davises of the world. I laugh only partly there. But as time goes by, we are going to talk baseball here. We're going to get through this deep pitching slate and try to give you a first peek at what we were thinking for a 15 game. There's still plenty of gigantic prize pools on all sites. I do want to remind you, obviously, Yahoo has NFL offerings. They are running a $25 entry fee, management fee free tournament on Sunday. Their $1 million tournament is available to you all. 10 max entry, all sort of the things that we talk about if you're not an MMEer over on DK, if you're not entering 150 lineups, sites like Yahoo will give you the opportunity to build that bankroll. So check them out when you have the opportunity. So Dave, jumping in here quickly, we'll go through the top end. There are a ton of pitchers over 10K. I almost immediately check Lucas Giolito off. I can't imagine paying 12-1 for him. First of all, I know he's been great this year, but also the matchup with the Angels seems like one that we can disregard unless you're trying to figure out a really contrarian GPP lineup. Kershaw against San Francisco, we can come back to. Corbin gets Atlanta. Robbie Ray against Cincinnati in Great American Ballpark. Denilson Lamet gets Colorado in San Diego, and then Michael Pineda is above 10K, where I guess I should say he's 10K flat. Are you in agreement, one, on Giolito, and where else do you see some of the top options here, 10K or above?
Yeah, I don't see myself getting to Lucas Giolito at that price point. It's difficult to get there, to say the least, and not only difficult, but it's unnecessary. I mean, there's really no reason to pay that much for Lucas Giolito on this slate. Now, one thing to look at first and foremost before we get into anything is, are we working with a Coors Field slate? The answer to that, as they continue this road trip, is no. So that's good. What type of totals are we looking at? Well, I can pull them up, and we'll get to them in just a moment. But we'll take a look at some of these expensive pitchers first. Clayton Kershaw, that price tag is up there. I could make an argument for him, and if it's Kershaw or Giolito, even though this Angels lineup is not the same as they were earlier this season in terms of they're not as good and they are striking out a little bit more, but still not a team that you want to pay $12K for. When you're paying $12K for a guy in a bad or underwhelming matchup, you better make sure it's Verlander or Sale or Garrett Cole. As good as Giolito's been, I can't say I'm overly confident in his ability to pay off that price tag here. Corbin against Atlanta, man, the amount of bats they have to be able to knock southpaws out of games is definitely discouraging to me.
Yep.
One guy that really does interest me, though, and I do think he's a little bit too expensive, but if we're just talking about matchup, I find Dinelson Lamet to be pretty interesting. You know, he should be cheaper. I don't think there's any denying that. Dinelson Lamet should not be 10-3, but it is a very appealing matchup. So we can't ignore the matchup here. We can't ignore the fact that the Colorado Rockies have been, underwhelming all season long outside of Coors Field, and I don't think anything about that changes today. So if you like Dinelson Lamet enough to pay for him, I get it. It's just that price point is kind of it's tough to get there. Michael Pineda at $10K against Cleveland. I'm having a very tough time understanding a lot of this. I mean, Cleveland, not a team you're trying to pay that much for, even if Jose Ramirez is on the IL. Like, it's still not a team that makes you feel good. They can still put out some quality bats in this lineup. They can get very lefty heavy, and some of the righties are good as well. I can't say I'm enamored with this top tier of pitchers at all. Domingo Germán against Boston. Dallas Keuchel's above $9K against Washington, a team that beats up on lefties. I mean, dude, for 15 games, the guys we've got up top, I'm not very encouraged by any of this. I'd say Kershaw would be my favorite, and then Dinelson Lamet. But again, do you want to pay 5 figures for Lamet?
I don't think so. I will point out, I should say, over on FanDuel, Lamet checks in at 8,400,
which is way better because he's thrown 100 pitches, I think, once all season.
Yep, absolutely right. Spot on there. And over on FanDuel, on Yahoo, I should say, sponsor of today's podcast, $38, which is even more palatable, I would say, than it is on FanDuel. So you want to shop around. And I think we've talked about this on the past in the podcast. If you play on multiple sites, you don't want to get locked in on certain pitchers. You want to see where your price points are, obviously, and see where you can get maybe exposure to one guy that you would want on DK but can't. Get him on a Yahoo or get him on a FanDuel where you get him at a cheaper price point. As we roll on here, you mentioned Germán. You get Keuchel at 9.3. Cole Hamels at 8,800. Homer Bailey stands out a little bit for me here, 8,500 in Oakland. We know it's a bit more of a pitcher's park. We know Detroit has struggled a ton on the year. He's at 85. Then you have Samardzija, Miles Michaelis at 8K, Brandon McKay, Steven Matz against Philadelphia, and then Tommy Malone is 7,400. Bundy, Brock, what is it? He has a pitch count, I think. Brock Burke has a pitch count issue because of gastroenteritis maybe, or some sort of stomach issue. He's at 7,100. So that sort of rounds out our mid-tier. Keuchel on down to Burke. Is Bailey the one that stands out the most? Where else do you see yourself leaning here in this mid-tier of 8,800 down to 7K?
Bailey does stand out. Not because he's an elite arm or because he's particularly cheap, which he isn't, but he really hasn't been bad. And this is something that anyone that was paying attention would have noticed pretty early in the season, as a matter of fact, that Homer Bailey's off-speed stuff actually hasn't been bad. Just to give you a bit of an example here on what we get from Homer Bailey. By the way, the matchup with Detroit is pretty friendly as well, and that's really the reason that we would even contemplate paying this much for him to begin with, right? Like, you're not paying $8,500 for Homer Bailey unless it is a pristine matchup. Like, right. You need all of the pieces to come together in order to even consider it. But you look at his pitch mix this season. The splitter, he's throwing 25% of the time, second highest usage outside of the four-seamer. His whiff rate on that pitch is 20%. That's really good. I mean, a 20% whiff rate this late in the season on your splitter is encouraging. and 21% against righties. He's going to face a lot of righties here. I mean, his splitter's sitting like 84 miles per hour. I like the pitch. The pitch, it's a good pitch, and it's really the only reason that he's actually been able to kind of thrive in these type of spots. And it's another reason that his strikeouts have been high. I mean, look, you look at his last 7 starts, he's got 7 or more strikeouts in 4 of them.
Yep.
And he's got 7, 8, 3, and 9 over his last 4. Two of them against the Yankees, where he went a combined 11 and a third innings with only 3 runs and 17 Ks. So, you don't want to take a small sample size, but understand also that Homer Bailey has been good. And, I'll put it to you this way. Here's a simple way. I'd rather pay $85 for Bailey at O.co in a great pitcher's park against Detroit than Michael Pineda at 10K against Cleveland.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Dallas Keuchel, a lefty who really struggles to rack up elite strikeout numbers against Washington. Domingo Germán at 97 against Boston. These guys maybe save for Dallas. No, Dallas Keuchel's pretty good. These guys are all better pitchers than Bailey, but he's just in a much better spot and he's cheaper. So yeah. And also consider this. Jeff Samardzija is basically the same price. He's facing the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. I'll pass. I think everybody should, even though outside of Oracle, he's been pretty fine this season, but that's not a spot you want to target. Miles Mikolas at 8K. I mean, how confident do you feel there? He's had a couple quality starts, but these starts mostly come with very low strikeout totals. I know he had a 10K game against Milwaukee, but very few and far between to see Mikolas rack up those type of numbers. And then the next one I'll stay above 7K. The next one here would be Brendan McKay. No idea how many pitches he can throw. Last time out, he was chalky against Seattle. He got BABIP'd a bit, and then he just got rocked. So if he starts in this game, assuming that he is your primary guy and not just an opener, which would be a disgrace, he should be in play as well against Toronto. And then just to move it a little bit further down, there's really nobody else that stands out above 7K. Dylan Bundy's always a player that I'm willing to roster in tournaments because he does have strikeout upside. He is a K per inning guy, exactly, as a matter of fact. And then Steven Matz, I guess you could make an argument there. This Philadelphia offense has really labored throughout the entirety of this season. But I think Brandon McKay would be your better bet, assuming he's not on a pitch count.
Yep, right there with you. And to point out, Bundy 7,500 over on FanDuel. And to follow up a little bit on the Homer Bailey stuff, he's also reduced his walks. I don't know if I would need to dig into numbers a little bit more as to why, but the K-minus walk ratio over the past 2 months and the walk rate overall has diminished, which is nice to see because you just get that whip, especially on a site like DK. You get rid of the negative points for the walks. I think you have some upside. So Bailey's the one, to me, who stands out the most in this mid-tier. I most likely will stay away from Mats. This feels like a JT Realmuto 2-home run sort of game, but that is just more gut feeling from me. Sub 7K, you get Plutko, Valdez against Seattle. I guess there's some merit there. The Mariners have been bad for about 4 of the 5 months in the Major League season. Valdez has shown a bit of upside. He is inherently wild. He walks pretty much the farm on any given outing, but he's throwing 94, 100 pitches, which has some upside. And Seattle is one of the most inefficient offenses in baseball. They've been a little bit better over the past few weeks, but you get Plutko, Eflin, Buchholz, Melville, Pablo Lopez, Tyler Mahle. Zach Davies is down here against the Cubs. Turnbull gets Oakland. You get the Los Angeles starters, Dylan Peters from the left side against Detroit. Let's go the rest of the way. 7K and below. Any of these names worthwhile to you?
Yeah, Valdez is I have tepid interest in Valdez. You don't have okay, let's look at it this way. He's not a big strikeout guy. As far as home runs go, he's been okay. he's only faced what? Let's see, 282 batters this season. He walks too many of them, but against lefties, as he should be, he's been very good. Righties, not horrible, sub 200 ISO, but a lot of home runs. I think in a matchup like this, where, like you said, most of the season the Seattle team's been bad. It's funny, they were so good at the beginning of the season that like some of their numbers are still higher than they should be against lefties and righties. But if there's one thing we know is they are so depleted that they're forced to run out 4 or 5 lefties every time they face a lefty.
Yep.
In 2019, even last year before, it's almost unheard of. Very seldom do you see that unless like all of your really good hitters are left-handed, But even Cleveland, where that's the case, most of them switch hitters. You can turn that around, make it easy. The Dodgers, when healthy, can get right-handed enough to where it's not a straight righty or a straight lefty lineup. All of these good teams that are heavy from the left side are still very capable of getting right-handed enough against lefties. That really hasn't been the case for Seattle. They now have the 4th highest strikeout rate against southpaws in the league. Their 155 ISO is down 21st in baseball. There's just really nothing redeeming about this team when the roster that they're running out there, the lineup that they're running out there night to night, specifically against lefties. If you wanted to run Valdez out, knowing that he got beat up last start, but he did throw 103 pitches, knowing that he can throw that many, I have no problem with him here. And I would assume, I'm going to pull this up now, that Valdez is going to be a pretty significant favorite at home, pretty heavy favorite.
I would wager that is the right take, that they are, what would be my guess? I would say they are at least minus 200.
They are minus 230.
All right, there you go.
Yep, it is there. He's the second heaviest favorite on the slate behind only the Dodgers and Clayton Kershaw. So that plays into the appeal a bit. 4.2 run total for the Mariners. Not bad, given that, he's 6,900. I don't have an issue with that.
How do you feel about the combination of wait, are they both on the same team? This is amazing that these two pitchers are on the same team. Chacin and Cashner. Has there been a better opener long reliever tandem in Major League Baseball history? I don't know that there has.
I think I could name a couple.
What anybody else here sub 7K does feel like a slate where, at least at first glance, you're going to try to find some exposure in the mid-tier. Homer Bailey would probably be pretty high owned, and then you get up to the Lamettes of the world to try to figure out if you have some K upside on that end. Anybody else beyond the lefty for the Houston Astros that is Valdez as a potential cheap option here to pair with one of the higher priced arms?
Well, you always have Tim Melville.
You do.
I mean, hey, 21% strikeout guy at AAA.
Better than Herman Melville, I would say.
Sure. There's not a lot to really like about him, but it's San Diego. In San Diego.
Sure.
So, if you forced me to make an argument here, I'm pretty certain I could do it. But at the same time, I don't feel good about it either. So, yeah, it's a tough spot. I think. Who do we have pitching for Colorado?
It's Melville.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. San Diego. Lamet, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Dinelson Lamet. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So Melville's a big dog on the road. I mean, could I see a decent game? I guess, maybe 5 strikeouts, 5 one-run innings or something. It's possible. I think you'd be better off just going to Valdez, a much heavier favorite. Hopefully you get those win points. Pablo Lopez at home this season has been remarkably good. Who knows if that lasts? I certainly don't. He's cheap. Kansas City's not especially good. Marlins Park plays, of course, very favorably for pitchers, not favorably for hitters. Pablo Lopez with a 22% strikeout rate on the season. It could be worse, 25% against righties. So let's see what that lineup looks like. And again, very good at home where you have those spacious conditions. not the craziest idea to look there. I think I'd prefer him. Of all the 6K guys not named Valdez, it would be Lopez. And then outside of that, I'm sure Musgrove will get some ownership.
I was going to ask you. Yep. God
knows why, but it'll probably happen again.
It's the stuff. He's got good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's the only other one would be Jorge Lopez. He threw 82 pitches last time out. He's $5,300 facing Miami. I could definitely make an argument for Jorge Lopez, and it wouldn't be difficult at all. Here it goes. It's the Miami Marlins. They rank dead last in the league in WOBA, ISO, and WRC plus versus righties. It's one of the most favorable pitcher parks in the league. He has a 22% strikeout rate, and he might be able to throw 90 pitches. He's the second. Well, actually, no. As a matter of fact, Jorge Lopez is the cheapest actual starting pitcher who isn't an opener on this entire slate. So there you go. Pretty decent argument.
Yeah, I think that we talk about ownership here, and somebody actually left a YouTube comment asking how it's calculated. To be quite honest, there are a couple of different calculations that go into the ownership. It's not a blind guess. It's taking in consideration of the Awesemo projections, taking in chatter and the probability of the ownership, and then projecting what obviously a sum of 100% for pitchers and the like, all there, depending on 2-pitcher site, single pitcher site. But I think you may see some somewhat elevated ownership there on Jorge Lopez. I think that then you get to Valdez and you talk Homer Bailey, and then Dinelson, Lamet are sort of the 4 pitchers I would at first glance expect to see the most ownership on. Maybe we can talk Kershaw against San Francisco, just name recognition and matchup, but 11.9 is a steep price to pay for Kershaw on this slate. I will point out also an interesting article over from, I think it's the AP, but it's on ESPN where I found it. I don't know if you saw this, Dave. Home runs have surged 58% at AAA this year.
Yeah, the baseballs.
Yep, they brought in the Major League Baseball baseballs. So they got the MLB balls in AAA, and 58% increase from 3,652 to 5,752 so far. I guess this season is just ending, the International and Pacific Coast Leagues. Just incredible to see that. With that transition, offenses you're most interested in here for this slate, which ones stand out? Which ones do you think will be the highest owned on Friday's slate?
Yeah, so just to start, Houston against Tommy Milone, or as we like to call him, Tommy Mione.
Tommy Mione.
6.5 run implied total. It's hard. It's going to be tough to get away from that for sure. Minnesota against Adam Plutko. They have a 6-run total. He's just okay. He's not good. He's not a complete gas can, but Minnesota is just a dominant juggernaut of an offense. Houston clearly at the top, though. Then it thins out, oddly enough. There's a bunch of guys that you don't want to play today at pitcher, but then a bunch of spots where you're not really enthusiastic about the offense facing them either. So one that stood out, the White Sox actually have a 5.3 run total against Dylan Peters. That's interesting. Milwaukee, if they're cheap again, you might see low ownership there. Let me just pull that up. Against Cole Hamels. I have a lot of respect for him, but he will give up home runs. And he's had a couple of starts recently that have been pretty suspect, to say the least. But he's still a decent enough pitcher. I just think when you're getting – so, okay, it looks like their prices are back up a little bit. I'll have to look at that a little bit more in depth. Yesterday they were really, really cheap. Just not a ton here that you really love to see. You mentioned JT Realmuto being a potential 2-home run guy. I do think the Phillies are in play because Matt's home run issues versus righties haven't gone anywhere. And Philly is just one of these teams that they're either completely silenced or they break out. And all of them are discounted. I think Bryce Harper is the most expensive at $4,800. Outside of that, you've got $4,300 Hoskins, $41 on Realmuto, $35 on Caesar. Maybe Brad Miller's in the lineup at $3,300. All of them are really discounted, so it shouldn't be that tough to get a nice Philly stack in there, especially from the right side.
Yep, I think that's where that might make a ton of sense. Remember, Mats has struggled in the past as well. The past, I should say, to actually enunciate the word I'm trying to go for. With stolen bases, the Mets have at large struggled as well. You get somebody. Has Segura been playing? He's been playing, right, for the Phillies. Segura
Yeah.
is somebody at a cheap price point here. I like it as well. So I might lean heavily on the Phillies here at cheaper price points with some upside against Steven Matz. It's a wide open slate, so we're just going to have to dig in further on the data as we roll through. If you want to become a member of Osmo.com and get some extra input there, you can use the promo code EarlyBird, get yourself Osmo Plus, which is the premium membership over there at Osmo.com. Follow Osmo_com, Osmo NFL, Osmo MLB for all sorts of giveaways as we roll through and into NFL season. You get tons of Dave Lochran in your life. You get NFL strategy. You get MLB. You get Sirius, and that is Saturday and Sunday. You get 5 to 7 on Saturday, 7 to 9 on Sunday, Sirius 210, XM 87, Dave and Manny Laura. You'll see Manny from time to time on the NFL Strategy Show as well over here at Osmo.com. Am I missing anything, Dave, other than, of course, spelling out your Twitter handle?
I think we got it, man.
Find Dave on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D. Find myself at Dan Strafford if you so choose. Just know what you're getting into there. And, of course, it's Osmo_com. Tomorrow morning, get Emac and Adam right here on the DFS Early Bird presented by Osmo.com.